Hello, everyone. A special announcement from the Moriel TV team. Now, if you go to Moriel.tv, just navigate over to the video section. You can catch all of our video on demands, whether they be Bible studies or Catching Up with Jacob, full-length episodes, or the bits. And starting next week, if you go to the Moriel TV live stream, you'll be able to catch our live streams, whether they be on YouTube, Rumble, or any other platform, without any censorship. You'll get direct access to Backstage and other features. A big thanks for all your prayers and support. We hope to see you soon, and God bless.
Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. This time, not in the Middle East, but back to our respective homes, a more familiar place. Jacob across the Atlantic, I'm on the Pacific Coast. Jacob, how you doing tonight?
I'm okay. Always looking forward to what God is saying and what God is doing. Isn't it wonderful
Amen.
that Jesus is coming despite the world we live in?
Amen. Despite the world. Jacob, how's your health? I know people are asking and people are wondering what's going on and how you're feeling, and just want to update that.
Well, my lymphatic edema, as you know, you're with me at the time, caused a major problem, immobility problem in Israel. And I thank people for their prayers. Also, when I was away, my wife took ill and she had to undergo heart ablation. So please keep Pavia in prayer as well. She's stable, she's fine, but has been ill. So please keep her in prayer as well. We've had a lot of health issues within Moriel recently, and I'm not immune. So your prayers are much needed by all of us, by Beryl Hunter, among others. Several people in Moriel have health issues at the moment, but we know we're going to recover because the Lord has a work for us to do.
Amen. So true, brother. Well, coming back from Israel, spending some time there, Jacob, just any thoughts on Israel coming back and what you feel the spiritual condition of the church politically, what's going on in Israel? Just you don't have to take a long time, but just final thoughts, since we haven't had a chance to talk about it since we got back.
Well, we did talk about it in the prelude to the Bible study last night. What's happening in Israel in terms of the body of Christ, or the body of Messiah there. It is, of course, growing, and the work of Moriel there is, of course, growing. And by the goodness of God, we're able to help a lot more ministries. Many people don't know that in addition to our own work, which is largely evangelistic, we have a ministry of supporting and helping local congregations and other ministries, including the country's only Messianic school, including a ministry for believers in the army, including a number of congregations that we visited, and some of them Marco had met for the first time. So God is indeed moving. But Israel is like the body of Christ anywhere else. It is under attack. It is under spiritual seduction. It is under oppression in many places, certainly from the Orthodox Jews, as usual. Yad Lahim and organizations like that don't like Jewish believers. There's also a concern of the religious Zionist party coming into coalition with Benjamin Netanyahu's new government, and they are extremely, extremely opposed to Jewish believers. They have ideological roots with Rabbi Meir Kahane from the JDL, the Jewish Defense League in America, which is called Kach in Israel and was labeled a terrorist organization. Yet they claim to have modified for political reasons, but they'll be coming into coalition, most likely. So the believers in Israel are facing certain challenges from without, but they're also facing challenges from within. The poison, the seduction of the New Apostolic Reformation, which in Israel is called Tikkun, the Tikkun movement, false apostles, is poisoning much of the body of Christ in Israel. They've done significant damage, and they're doing more and would like to do more still, believing themselves to be apostles, putting themselves into a position that is totally unscriptural. So the congregations that Moriel is involved with, of course, don't subscribe to any of this, but it is an issue nationally, quite an issue. In a nutshell, that's what's happening. But God is moving.
That is so true. And I can testify to that. He is moving among God's people, faithful people, wonderful school, wonderful congregations, great leaders and pastors. But nonetheless, there are some problems. And I got to sit in a couple of meetings regarding the Tikkun movement, and definitely very concerning. So keep the believers in prayer, keep the church in Israel in prayer. Jacob, you're going to Ireland next week.
Yes, we shall be on the 24th in Newton Abbey at Calvary Pentecostal Church. The details are listed on the Moriel website, moriel.org. I'll be in Newton Abbey with Pastor Stephen Trumbull on the 24th. The 25th through the 27th, we will be at Agape Christian Fellowship at Orangefield Crescent, and we'll be doing Revelation chapters 1, 2, and 3 in a series from the 25th to the 27th, the entire weekend, at Agape Christian Fellowship on Orangefield Crescent, also listed on the Moriel.org website. And finally, I shall be visiting the land of my maternal ancestors, Donegal, in the Republic of Ireland, and we have a Moriel meeting at the Abbey Hotel located at the Diamond in Donegal town at 7 o'clock on Monday the 28th. So from the 24th to the 28th, we shall be in Ireland, both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Please visit the Moriel.org website for details. If you're in Ireland, we look forward to seeing you.
Amen. Well, Jacob, it's going to be a really fun time in Ireland, and I think you haven't been there. I think you did go last year, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I was there last year. I was in Ireland earlier this year, but not to speak, for other things.
Yeah. So it'd be great to have you there. I'm sure the believers are looking forward to that. One announcement, Jacob, that you saw the video, you watched the video. If you're watching tonight, you see the video that played, and very much thankful for John and Jay, those who put it together. Moriel.tv is launching. The website is launching. It is live now, but we're promoting it now. All for next week. We'll be advertising it, and catching up will be next Friday. Will be on Moriel.tv. You can go to the website. You can watch videos on demand. You can watch live stream. Basically, everything you can do on YouTube, you can do it from the Moriel.tv website, which is a great grand opening. We've been looking forward to this day for at least a couple of years, since we got it, since the concept of the idea concept, and now to the launch. So, Jacob, we're very excited about that. And,
amen. Marco, as you know, we've all been getting hit left and right. That includes, of course, Moriel. That includes Christian Church of the Vor. That includes Grain Store. That includes all of us. We're also being trolled, cyber harassment, and YouTube is no Christian's friend. So just this week, they took down our Be Alert Facebook page. One thing after another. Now, fortunately, most people read Be Alert by electronic news bulletin. They get an email to them directly, but we're just tired of this. We've had to set up alternative platforms. It began with RTN, and we have a lot of material. Most of our material is available on RTN. We have Moriel TV now launching in the United States, and we have morieltv.org in Great Britain. We are beyond the control of those people who would like to censor us and take us down. But although the platforms are there, the mechanisms are there, the people need to be there. We would strongly urge our viewers to watch us on Moriel TV, Moriel.tv, morieltv.org, go to RTN, go to Rumble, but please avoid watching us on YouTube if you can. We are tired of those terrible people. What you see happening at this whole battle going on over at Twitter, it's the cyber world. They're anti-free speech, they're pro-censorship, they're anti-Christian, they're anti-Judeo-Christian. They're anti-anything that's not in agreement with their globalist agenda and their godless agenda on moral issues, sexual issues, marital issues, abortion issues, pro-life, etc. The censorship has become just manageable. People like David Wood have been taken down so many times, they were forced onto other platforms. Well, we are the same. We have Moriel.tv, we have MorielTV.org, we have RTN, and we also have additional outlets on Rumble and Odyssey and Vimeo. No shortage of places to watch us without having to resort to YouTube. Please come see us on Moriel TV. Moriel.tv.
Yeah, so we're very excited for sure. Very excited for sure about the website. Very excited for sure about all the different options that people may have. And we love giving people options. That's the best way to do it. So we are live streaming today into RTN, Vimeo, Rumble, Facebook Live. We're going into Telegram as well. So catch us on those sites. Plenty of options. If you do need information, you go to the Moriel.org page. Where to find Moriel? Lots of information is there, but put it on your if you go to Moriel.tv, bookmark it, you can get there anytime, any place. You can watch it, watch video on demand, and watch live stuff. So a lot of what you can do on YouTube and other platforms, you can do it there, and it's completely controlled by the Moriel team. So I think there'll be no censoring there. So, and then you can
soon
get
also,
back.
we'll soon also, Marco, as soon as possible, have a Moriel app. RTN already has an independent app. We will have a Moriel app, which is under development. So we're really expanding.
It is expanding very rapidly. So when expansion comes, confusion comes. So we're trying to literally streamline the information and people just be able to find it, because people get confused of where we are. And but just keep going to Moriel.org, Moriel.tv. A lot of information there, and you can find Jacob there. Or if you're on the other sites too, if you're on different platforms, we just want to make sure people know that we are on Moriel.tv. That's going to be our flagship. So make sure you bookmark it and keep it marked.
Bookmark Moriel.tv or come to the Moriel website.
That's right. So I think that's all the announcements we have, Jacob. We can get started and let's catch up this week. And so we'll start with some general information about what's going on here in the States. We'll move around the world, but obviously the biggest thing right here, what's going on is Republicans are moving very quickly to try to investigate not just the Biden family, but Joe Biden. The investigation on Joe Biden has taken place. They certainly are committed to this, at least what the Republicans are saying. It's an investigation of the Biden crime family, they say. And Republican or Representative James Comer, it's the Oversight Committee ranking member. I've watched the videos. They're going after it. I don't know how much they're going to get done. Jim Jordan says we'll expose it. We'll go after the DOJ and the FBI. I don't hold my breath a lot of times when the Republicans are talking. They even introduce resolutions to audit the funds to the Ukraine. So they're moving to do quite a bit of things. They're even trying to bring another nominee to the Speaker of the House instead of McCarthy.
I hope so.
Yeah, that would be Mr. Biggs, Andy Biggs, as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So lots of stuff. Plus, the biggest news, former President Trump announces his bid for presidential 2024 bid. So lots of stuff going on, Jacob. I gave you a lot. Let's take it step by step. Take it from there.
Okay. Concerning Mr. Trump's announcement, I personally don't agree with it, as I've already said before. He, in most respects, was the best president of my lifetime. He made certain mistakes, everybody would, but he was the best president in my lifetime in a number of areas. He was certainly pro-life. He's changed the face of the Supreme Court. He definitely kept his promises more than any other politician I've ever seen in my life, because he wasn't a politician. Inflation was 1.2%. America was energy independent. And we know that if he had been president, Afghanistan would not have fallen to the Taliban. All that waste of what all those Americans died for, and what do we put $2 trillion into? It wouldn't have happened if Donald Trump was president, but the media, of course, smooths over it and ignores it. Or what has happened in the Ukraine. It is very unlikely Mr. Putin would have gotten out of line and done what he did in the Ukraine if you had Donald Trump in the Oval Office instead of a senile weakling who we can take advantage of. That wouldn't have happened. This whole mess in the Ukraine would not be taking place had Donald Trump been rightly reelected. North Korea would not be firing these missiles over Japan, and China would not be threatening Taiwan if Donald Trump had been in the White House. It is very unclear if his defeat was even legitimate. But the way he was continually attacked by the mainstream media and lied against was nothing less than persecution. It was unbelievable. Nonetheless, he was still visibly the primary leader of the party. The Republicans did not do well in these elections. They did not do well. In fact, it is a humiliation. No, nobody won. The Democrats did not win, and the Republicans did not win. There were certain victories, such as Stacey Abrams and Beto O'Rourke being defeated, the election of Mr. Vance in Ohio, and even a turning of a few seats to more conservative Republicans in New York. There were certainly areas of victory, particularly in Florida with Governor DeSantis. This is clear. But the only tsunami, the only real wave that happened was in Florida. Now, I fundamentally blame the Republican Party leadership. I certainly blame Mitch McConnell, and I blame Mr. McCarthy for this defeat. McConnell had all of this money he was controlling, and as I said, in Alaska, he spent $2 million trying to get Murkowski nominated against the conservative Republican instead of spending it against the Democrat. McConnell cannot be trusted as far as you can spit. Either can McCarthy. I would rather have Jim Jordan or Mr. Biggs as House Speaker, and I would rather have Mr. Cruz or someone else, or Senator Kennedy, or Senator Grassi as leader of the Republican caucus in the Senate. That's right. McConnell is bad news. McCarthy is not good news. McConnell is bad news. They lost this election. But Donald Trump is not without his responsibility. The fact that a Republican seat under the present conditions was lost in Pennsylvania to somebody who looks
that is inexcusable,
like a reckless alien villain, man who's not been honest about his health and his cognitive ability after a stroke, but whose policies are absolutely barbaric.
Yes,
putting murderers on the street to kill again, in essence. The fact that you could not win a senatorial election against an opponent like that in a state like Pennsylvania is unforgivable. And Donald Trump must bear responsibility personally for his endorsement of Dr. Oz. Most of Donald Trump's candidates who he endorsed did not do well, did not win. No. Most of them, certainly key ones like in New Hampshire, did not win. And in Colorado did not win. But what happened in Pennsylvania is a national travesty. And it is a blotch on Donald Trump's reputation. Donald Trump was a good president. I'll say it again. He was a good president, but he was not a very good party leader. That may be because he is not a politician by profession. He's a businessman, which is a virtue, but he was not a good party leader. Oz was a bad choice. Oz is a Muslim Turk, a Turkish citizen who served in the Turkish military, although he was born in the United States. And he was a carpetbagger from New Jersey. He wasn't even from Pennsylvania. What happened in Pennsylvania is unforgivable. Now, I realize the state election apparatus had absentee votes mostly Democrats, pushed in before the actual debate on television, and people couldn't change their vote.
Yeah.
Other such shenanigans took place in Arizona, and not for the first time. These things are less than honest in the thinking of most thinking people. Vote harvesting and things of this nature, they should be banned, but they're not. In California, there's no ID. You can have illegal aliens voting.
Yeah.
It's completely ridiculous. It's an undermining of democracy. You can't get on an airplane without ID, but you can vote without even being a citizen.
Ridiculous.
This is not right. This is just horrible. Nonetheless, that is the reality. I don't think Mr. Trump is going to be as electable next time as he was in the past. I don't think it is in the best interest of the nation or of the party for him to run. Now, if he is the nominee, in all likelihood, I will vote for him, particularly if it is a Trump-DeSantis ticket. I will vote for him. But I would have rather seen the nominee be Mr. DeSantis. In a situation like this, with the unbelievable unpopularity of Biden and the mess the Democrats have gotten the country into, that the Republicans couldn't pull off.
They couldn't seal the deal.
A red wave. Shows you that the Republican Party is basically a piece of political garbage. It's what I've always said it is. It's just a piece of political garbage, no better and no different than the Democrats. Look at this week. 12 Republican senators, led by Mitt Romney, trying to undo the 1996 Protection of Marriage Act, saying that states, despite the democratic will of the people of those states, the voters of those states, the federal government dictates that each state must recognize same-sex marriage from another state. Right. So it's not just you have same-sex marriage being constitutional, but other states are forced to recognize it. Yeah. This bill could not go through easily, certainly not without the 12 Republicans. I wish to say something to my Christian friends who somehow still naively believe the Republican Party is more Christian. The Republican Party is no more Christian than the Democratic Party. It never has been in our lifetime. It just isn't. Oh, Ronald Reagan was a Christian. Yeah, he promised he was pro-life and appointed a pro-abortion judge to the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor. Ronald Reagan was an unprincipled liar. He betrayed the people who voted for him when he said he was pro-life and appointed a pro-abortion judge. His first appointment was to prove he was nothing but a liar. Sandra Day O'Connor wrote the Supreme Court's decision ordering the 10 Commandments out of the judicial building in Alabama. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. Kick God out of the courtroom. Remember, it was Earl Warren's Republican Supreme Court who kicked God out of the classroom. No prayer schools.
Great, yeah.
It was Berger's Supreme Court that kicked God out of the maternity ward. Roe v. Wade. Yep. It was Ronald Reagan's Sandra Day O'Connor Supreme Court that kicked God out of the judicial system. This is the Republicans. Now, again, we know Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy, was having seances and astrologers in the White House, witchcraft in the White House under Reagan, and naive Christians stupidly believed that man represented some kind of Christian values when all he did was lie to Christians. He sold weapons to terrorist Iran. He sold weapons to Iran and was never impeached. Christians thought he was wonderful. Billy Graham endorsed Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon. Billy Graham admits that he was later somehow demonically oppressed with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
But Billy Graham tried to make it a Christian cause to support Richard Nixon. Now they're at it again. When are these naive, undiscerning Christians going to learn? Remember, Donald Trump was not an establishment Republican. He was not a rhino. He was not even a politician. He was a former Democrat. He was somebody who was more of an independent than a Republican. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been such a good president. If he was a Republican, he would have been a piece of garbage like the rest of them.
Yeah, let's get back to that Respect of Marriage Act, Jacob, because that's really what it is. It's Charles Schumer. I guess he loved this bill, which is, if Charles Schumer likes it, I don't know why the Republicans would like it, but it's basically trying to protect same-sex marriage from any attack from the Supreme Court, he said, because of Thomas, after the decision on abortion. He commented that some of these cases, like the Obergefell case, should be retried or should be looked at it again because of it's unconstitutional to have the federal government places on the states. They freaked out. Now you got the Respect of Marriage Act, and of course it wouldn't pass without the Republicans' help, and that's what you're talking about. Even Mike Lee from Utah says that it has the ability to retaliate against religious institutions, organizations, and charities who favor traditional view of marriage. So they even tried to bring a new version that would protect the freedoms, and yet the Republicans, all they needed was 10, I suppose, to get this through, assuming all the Democrats would vote for the legislation. They still would not accept the new bill with the new version, protecting Christians, protecting organizations, protecting charities. This is crazy. Even though the
Republicans will betray born-again Christians in a minute, the same way Ronald Reagan did.
Yeah.
They will lie and betray the same way Reagan did. Bush was the same.
Look at this. The Mormon Church also announced its support of the same-sex marriage bill. So there goes the Mormons after the LGBT group. So
yep.
We've seen it coming for a while, but now it's here. They support this bill. I mean,
it shows you what Mormonism really is.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with husbands and wives. It has something to do with, for them, it's political affiliations.
Of course.
They've always had a wrong view of marriage, even from its founders.
Of course. What do you expect? Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, 23 wives, and they've always been perverted. Their leaders have always been perverted.
Yeah, now it's here. Latter-day Saints says that even though they're unchanged between a man and a woman, they would like to see ensure the Marriage Act because it preserves the rights of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters. That is like J.D. Greer, the former president of the Southern Baptists, saying that born-again Christians should be the number one spokesman and advocates for homosexual and lesbian rights, which to them, it's not only the right to marriage, but it's the right to adopt children and bring them up that way. This is the Southern Baptists. I have no more respect for the Southern Baptists than I do for the Mormons, because in the eyes of Christ, they're both the same.
This is extraordinarily a bad thing, and I'm not even I'm not even trying to push this as an alarmist. This is really bad, really bad. I wish more Christians will talk about this bill that's coming because it's got some teeth against Christians and organizations that don't.
Of course it does. But what do you expect from the Republicans other than a knife in the back?
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan knifed us in the back. What do you expect from Republicans other than a knife in the back?
Yeah. So you think anything's going to happen with this Biden investigation, Jacob? I mean, it's conducted by that same party. They're just going to say nothing to see here, move along, and then we're just going to get to the 2024 elections.
It's being played politically. Some will see it as retaliation for what was done to Trump. Obviously, that's how the Democrats are going to try to frame it. But obviously, they're just playing the long game for the 2024 election. They want to make Biden look as bad as possible and the Democrats look as bad as possible, especially given the results of this election, where it will be more difficult for the Democrats to replace Biden. Biden's hand was strengthened by this election. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're playing that game. They have to try to weaken his prowess politically, and associate him more with scandal and corruption, which he is. Okay, there's that. But if there was any hope to bring Biden to justice, it would have been the Durham investigations. And where is that gone? Where is it going? There's no justice this side of the return of Christ. It's too corrupt. It's just too corrupt. These people aren't going to do anything. You've got Republicans like Murkowski and Mitch McConnell. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, other than a press battle in the press. There'll be a battle in the press and in the media. But anything of political substance, it's not likely to happen. It's not likely to result in any kind of indictment of Hunter Biden, or is it likely to result in an impeachment of Joe Biden? It's unlikely. They haven't got the numbers of people in the Senate to do that. The other thing they're looking for is this. This election, in terms of the Senate, the statistical odds were, or the statistical configuration was, there were more Republicans up for re-election. In 2024, there'll be more Democrats in the Senate up for re-election. So that's how they're hoping to get the Senate back in 2024. That's the long game that's being played politically.
Yeah.
But it's just that game. It's about electoral politics. It's not about morality. It's not about ideology. It's not about constitutional government. It's not about any of that. It's just about money and power.
Yeah. There's just very little hope, and I don't want to discourage anybody to thinking, but it really is a done deal in terms of trying to hope for a political salvation. And we need to look forward to looking at Christ as Christians. Need to look at Christ, look at the Word of God, and begin to proclaim God's Word, because it's been very absent. A lot of Christians absent from that proclamation of the gospel and living a holy life and maintaining Christ as our standard. But Jacob, let me ask you this. Another thing that happened, Pelosi stepping down. Now, a lot of people are very excited about that. I don't know if it's going to make any difference, but she's stepping down. Plus, by the way, there's more information about her husband and that situation with the Pappas, and there's now camp footage, body cam footage of Pelosi actually opening the door for the police to come.
Yes.
So, what do you think? Anything's going to happen? Anything changes with Pelosi stepping down? She's certainly very evil in terms of what she's done and what she stood for. Even the Catholic Church has retaliated against her. Not all of it, but nonetheless, she's persona non grata in some churches in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, when the Bishop of San Francisco stood up to her, she just went to the Bishop of Los Angeles, and then she went on a pilgrimage to the Vatican to talk to the Pope. It's all. Yeah. It's not about religion. It's about politics.
Yeah,
it's the politics of religion. It's not religion. It's all hypocrisy. Do I think it's going to make a difference if they get rid of Nancy Pelosi? No. They'll get somebody who's just as depraved.
Yeah, I mean, they got control of the House. The Republicans got control of the House, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, especially if McCarthy becomes, of course, the speaker. Yeah.
You've had these people like Tim Ryan and and Boehner. These people are no good. They're as bad as any them. They're no better than Pelosi.
As bad as she is, you're right. They are no better than Pelosi. Jacob, another thing that the Democrats are moving very quickly is regarding the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, against Twitter. They're calling it integrity and safety. Very much concern over Mr. Musk and his dealings there. And one of the things that they're doing, of course, is advertisement companies, corporations are threatening to stop advertising on Twitter because of that. Any comments on that, Jacob?
100 corporations by a activist organization of tech it's like a tech supposedly looking for ethics in high tech, but it's a Clinton front. It's controlled by the Clintons. It's funded by Arbella, which is Clinton and Soros money. That is what is happening. They are demanding that Mr. Musk not gut community standards guidelines, including content moderation. In other words, we don't like something you say until now. We just say you violated our community standards guidelines without saying what it is.
Yeah.
Because you disagreed with us, and we call this content moderation. It's just censorship. It's an attack on the First Amendment. It's censorship. And again, it's the Clintons and Soros on back of it. That's all it is. Now look at these. Look, who are these companies? Well, there's General Mills and things like that, but it's Pfizer. Pfizer's on the head of the list.
Oh man,
the vaccine. What do you expect? They'll go after billionaires who violate the policies of the club. If you go against the globalist agenda, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire like Donald Trump or a mega billionaire like Elon Musk. You've gone against the establishment. Now, maybe Donald Trump and Elon Musk have the money to fight the establishment that other people don't have. Okay, if they weren't billionaires, they would not be able to do what they're doing. But the establishment will go after them as fast as they'll go after anybody.
That's true. That's true. Jacob, any thoughts on this was interesting. Biden in his administration says that basically the crown prince of Saudi Arabia has a total immunity from lawsuits against what happened to Jamal Khashoggi.
Khashoggi, of course.
Yeah, that was crazy. I couldn't believe that. They actually stated that.
Well, that's like Condoleezza Rice and the Bush administration said Pope John Paul II, not John Paul II, I'm sorry, Pope Benedict could not be prosecuted for conspiracy to obstruct justice and its protection of pedophiles. That was the Bush administration. It's all the same game.
No, man. This is crazy. I did want to take the time to welcome those who are watching on different platforms, from YouTube to Rumble to Telegram to Vimeo to Facebook to RTN. Want to make sure that we're going to be taking questions on Rumble. So if you have questions for Jacob at the end, and then we'll be switching over to the other platforms. We're going to be off of YouTube and Facebook, and we're going to be heading toward Backstage. And you can catch Backstage on the platforms that we mentioned, except for YouTube and Facebook. We're going to be taking off of those because they don't like what Jacob has to say. They don't like what I have to say. We're going Backstage. If you really want to know what Jacob has thinks about certain hot topics, you can get there. Backstage will be directly after the question. So we want to make sure that you have that information. The links will be there provided for you on the YouTube chat, on the I believe on the web too. I don't know if I'm Rumble chat, but if you provide the links to go to Backstage, we'll stay on Rumble. We'll stay on the other platforms, but if you're on YouTube and Facebook, come over to the other side and watch Backstage with us. Jacob, let's get back to this, because one thing that's really coming along, and this week was absolutely true, programmable dollars. Now, the New York Fed, along with 12 bank giants, they're talking big giants, launching a digital dollar test. They're testing it. They're testing it now for 2 years. Now it's here. Citigroup, HSBC, MasterCard, Wells Fargo, New York Fed. Who else is on this list? Bank of New York Mellon, Trust Financials, US Bank Corp, MasterCard are all involved in these digital dollars that are coming on. Super creepy stuff. This is basically this is spyware money. Now they're testing it. Another thing that's happening, Jacob, is I've seen a lot of other banks in a lot of other countries like Australia and Canada starting to launch their credit cards linked to carbon emissions. Pretty crazy stuff. People didn't think that was going to happen, or if it was going to happen, it was going to happen 20 years from now. But basically your idea of the environment and how you purchase and how you behave, it's all going to be tracked along with spyware money, surveillance money. Jacob, we know where this is going, Revelation 13.
Absolutely.
But in the near future, what do we have to look for? Is this scary? Are we just basically, sounding the alarm, basically becoming too alarmist regarding this, or is this really bad?
It's really bad. ESG was what they call it, environmental social government. Okay. It is simply the Western version of Chinese social credit scoring. Politically driven social credit scoring in China. It's simply the Western version of it. Again, there's a reason that Schwab wanted Ping to be the leader of this great reset, because they're two of a kind.
Yeah.
You just had a meeting with Biden and Ping. What was on top of the agenda? Was it Taiwan and the threats of Taiwan? No, it was global warming. Heat. Yep. This Incredible. Man, okay, he's a senile idiot. He's a hypocrite. He's a corruptocrat. He's a liar. He's a baby killer. He's all of these terrible things. It's almost impossible for Biden not to burn in hell forever. That man will go to hell. Okay, and he might not have very long before he gets there. Hell is waiting for him, but hell is waiting for Ping too, for persecuting Christians. We have to understand, because of the Judeo-Christian foundations of Western society that have been eroded, the United States and the West may appear to be morally better than China, but the American government is no better than the Chinese government. Biden is no better than Ping. They're two of a kind. One is as bad as the other. They're both liars. They're both hypocrites. They're both killers. It doesn't matter. Look, instead of Taiwan and instead of COVID, which killed over 1 million Americans, he's talking about climate change. This man is an idiot. He's a complete idiot. Only he's a corrupt idiot.
Yeah, this is for sure happening. And, right before our eyes, we've seen the transformation of the economy, marrying the economy to the environment. And there you have it. You would be tracked, you will be watched, and you will be basically given a score based on the environmental positive changes that you have. If you bought less meat, if you did more if you rode your bike rather than drove your car, that kind of
First
stuff.
It'll be Canada and Australia. Then it will be extended into the United States and Great Britain.
Crazy stuff.
That's how they'll do it.
No doubt. Now, Jacob, speaking of digital money, let's talk about the FTX disaster. It is a disaster beyond proportions. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars that have been lost. Yeah, have been lost through FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, who is absolutely an interesting character. Nonetheless, we'll unpack it as we go on because more things are coming out, but I don't think we're going to be able to talk about it all today. But he basically admitted that, yeah, he donated all this money, and his whole charade of, wokeism was just a front. It was just a front. He just admitted that, and he shifts the blame now to the other company that his ex-girlfriend was running. She's a CEO, Ellison, last name Ellison. So he's been on Adderall. He's been on amphetamines. He is a mess. But what is more interesting is that the $32 billion that have been lost, these are people's money. This is investment that came into people that invested in cryptocurrency. Carolyn Ellison received a lot of money for Alameda Capital from FTX. And get this. This is where it gets really interesting. Her father, Gene Ellison, runs the economic department at MIT.
Yep.
Who was a professor at MIT. Well,
and it's odd has a similar job at Columbia University.
That's right.
His parents His parents are legal academics at Stanford.
Stanford, that's right. So all this to go back to this. So he has a girlfriend who's an Alameda Capital, gets billions of dollars from FTX. FTX is run by Sam Bankman-Fried, who gets a lot of money, at least startup money, from BlackRock and other companies like that. Then that money goes through Ukraine and back to the Democratic Party, because a lot of money went through charities for Ukraine. All that transaction money that they made goes back to the Democratic Party. He's the second largest donor to the Democratic Party behind George Soros. Jacob, unpack this a little bit. We've seen some very nefarious things, but this is
the biggest Ponzi scheme since Bernie Madoff. It's the biggest Ponzi scheme since Bernie Madoff.
Oh man, yeah.
The Republican Ponzi politically involved Ponzi scheme was Enron. But did anybody call for the criminal investigation of Bush and Cheney because of their associations with Enron? No. But Republicans had a Ponzi scheme with Enron. This is a Democrat Ponzi scheme. This chap was closely associated with the Clintons, very closely associated with the Clintons. Again, the writing was on the wall, but do you see the media giving it its due coverage?
No.
They're playing it down. They're trying to ignore it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the guy's personal life, he lived over in a penthouse with 10 friends in the Bahamas. Right? Notice the people who operate in this sphere of political influence and political contributions with a social and socializing aspect to it, like Epstein.
Yeah.
These people are personally messed up in their own lives.
Yeah.
They're personally messed. Epstein was a messed up person. Yeah. Well, this Samuel Bankman-Fried is a messed up person.
Yeah.
He might go down the way Epstein went down.
Yeah.
But when Clinton ditched the Secret Service bodyguards and got on Epstein's jet, did anybody hold Clinton accountable?
No, not at all.
Or what happened to Prince Andrew? You know what I mean? Slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. What happened to Bush and Cheney with Enron? Nothing. And nothing's going to happen now.
By the way, Jacob, that house in the Bahamas, it's been known, and people are uncovering this. It's not going to find it on the news. It's been known to be like a sex house. It was just
same
as
Epstein's Island.
It was a harem. And by the way, guess who's called to investigate this? Maxine Waters, who had received. I don't know what Maxine's going to find anything, because of course, look, there's ties to the SEC, Gary Gensler. There's tied to the Democratic Party.
Yep.
There's ties to Elizabeth Warren. There's ties to Maxine Waters. It is a completely mess. Regulators are not going to care. They're not going to do anything about it. But he's admitting it. At least he's admitting it, that it's a disaster. The ideology that he follows is a disaster. By the way, ties to Ukraine, basically getting to Ukraine. So it was like a slush fund by the Democratic Party. They send money to Ukraine, goes through FTX, back to the Democratic Party.
Unbelievable. And notice, most of these people are always associated with the Clintons.
Yeah. Yeah, there's pictures of him and Tony Blair, arm to arm with Sam Bankman-Fried. But Jacob, who was Sam Bankman-Fried prior to Biden announcing his nomination? I mean, he was a nobody. He's nobody, and all of a sudden he becomes.
Well, his family were prominent in the liberal academic establishment. He was well connected in that sense.
But his rise in about 2 years,
academic establishment.
Yeah, in 2 years he became super wealthy. Huge.
3 years, 32 billion in 3 years.
It's crazy. So now he's done. It's a bankrupt company. Alameda Capital is bankrupt. No one's going to get their money. This is where we're going with this. So again,
They'll
another
go down the way Madoff went down, or the way the Enron guy went down, or the way Epstein went down. But the people he's connected with politically are not going down. The media will make sure it doesn't happen. The corrupt Justice Department will make sure it doesn't happen.
That's right. That's right. Incredible. Tens of billions of dollars. I mean, 32 billion. I mean, it's plus all the money that went through FTX to Ukraine, back to the Democratic Party. But like you said, no one's going to do anything about it. I don't think so.
Aren't you believe there's a day of judgment?
It has to be. I mean, amen. It has to be, because otherwise
I'll tell you something, Mark. Well, you know this. There's a day of reckoning. There's a day of judgment. Everything in darkness will be brought to the light. Nobody will get away with anything except for saved Christians, because Jesus took the blame and paid the price for what we did. He justified us. We are the only ones going to get away with what we did, because he took the blame for it. And all of these deeds of darkness will be exposed on the day of judgment. The only people who are going to have their sins hidden is us. When you understand the gospel and how wonderful it is and what Jesus did, our misdeeds, our sins, our own corruption will be hid, because they were judged on the cross.
That's right.
The only one's going to walk, the only one's going to get away with it are us. Let them have this world. It's going to hell in a handbasket. Praise God for Jesus. Forget about justice in this world. Okay, so some of them might go down, but the kingpins aren't going down. When they go down, they're going to go way down. Into the lake of fire. No doubt. Jacob, praise Jesus for what you said, and absolutely true. And the only one's going to get away with it are us. If we repent to put our faith in Jesus.
That's right.
The only ones whose misdeeds are going to be hidden are ours, because of Jesus. You got to be crazy to reject the gospel. You got to be out of your mind to reject the salvation offered to us through Jesus.
That's right. That's right. It's hard to find righteousness on the earth, but one day it'll be righteousness will be visible.
Amen.
From one side of the world to the other side of the world, from one end of the ocean to the other. Jacob, let's talk about Ukraine and Russia for a minute. Things are happening there. We were this close to some kind of altercation. Some believe that it could have been World War III. I don't dismiss it completely, because there were some rockets fired and landed in Poland, killing 2 farmers. And all I know, we were in Israel at the time. We were told, hey, Russia has fired some missiles into Poland. It turned out that it was Ukraine. After searching it, it's been found that it was Ukraine. It might have been some Russian missiles, but Ukraine fired them, landed in Poland. Nonetheless, Zelensky still wants NATO and the US to get involved. This guy wants World War III. I don't think he has an off-ramp at this point. The news backtracked it. Even AP backtracked it and says, hey, we were wrong. This happened. It wasn't Russia firing. It was Ukraine. But Zelensky still denies it. He wants us to get involved. Russia has retrenched. They're back out of Kherson. Tell me what's going on there, Jacob. Says, hey, we were wrong.
Once again, the mainstream media is not reporting accurately the full picture of what's happening. They give tremendous amplification to every reconquest or liberation of territory taken by Russia. And they point out the humiliating repercussions for the Russian military and for Putin standing in the eyes of the world and of Russia. And they make much capital out of this, but they're only telling half the story. Let's look at the whole story. Strategically, he has retrenched and repositioned his forces along the Dnieper River, blew up bridges. They are now entrenched, and the Ukrainians will have an impossible time trying to cross that river and to push the Russians back any further. The land they gave up, or that they lost, the media says they were driven out of. They retreated, but it was a organized retreat. They retrenched. Why? Here's Putin's strategy. He retrenches to a defensible position, well fortified, that the Ukrainians cannot easily attack. They've gone as far as they can the river. Okay. In the meantime, he continues to dismantle, to destroy the infrastructure, the electricity, the power grid, the transportation systems. He's destroying the Ukraine. Russia is not having its power stations and powerhouses bombed. Russia is not having its utility bombed, its infrastructure bombed. Ukraine is. He retrenches his army to a defensive position and waits until these 300,000 conscripts, or whatever they are integrated into the Russian army, trained and integrated. And until the freezing winter comes and the land is hard where the tanks can move. Stays there, dug in, training these 300,000 conscripts with the Russian army. In the meantime, he's on the offensive in terms of his air war and artillery war, destroying the Ukrainian infrastructure. The Ukraine is fighting bravely, but it's not fighting all that well. They've taken a lot of casualties, as the Russians have. Tremendous casualties. And we know, well, at least anybody who is in the know knows, that these Javelin missiles and these HIMARS systems, you have Wagner. They're the Russian mercenaries. It's a company that hires ex-commandos and special forces and things like this in a civilian capacity, but they are essentially mercenaries. They've also gotten people out of prison as cannon fodder. Okay. The Americans and British have the same thing. You BlackRock and these companies, they're the same thing. Those HIMARS rocket launchers and Javelin missiles are being fired, if not by, certainly under the direct supervision of American and British mercenaries.
You're absolutely right.
Ex-Green Beret, ex-Navy SEAL, ex-British SAS, hired by these companies as military advisors, and of course it's all orchestrated by the CIA. That's who's really doing this fighting. The Ukrainians couldn't stand up against Russia. It is the Americans and the British who are doing it. So the United States and Britain are already fighting Russians.
That's right. Yeah.
It's just that they're not military personnel. Okay. They're CIA mercenaries working through corporate fronts, same as the Wagner Group in Russia. They do the same thing. Okay. But in the meantime, Russia's infrastructure and power grid is not being battered and dismantled. Ukraine's is. How much longer can Ukraine hold out?
Yeah.
If it was the goal of the United States and NATO to destroy Putin's army in the Ukraine, they would have given them more advanced weapons at an earlier point in the conflict, but they haven't. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
It is entirely possible that after the Ukraine is left hungry, homeless, and impoverished, no electricity, dysfunctional industry, dysfunctional transportation system, people can't do anything. And then the ground hardens, there'll be a Russian offensive. Russia has not fought well. Not because of the Ukrainians alone, but because of the Americans and British. Okay? Okay. So they've not fought that well. Putin bit off more than he can chew. He caused NATO to move further east than it would have with Finland and Sweden and so forth. Okay, and he's gotten himself into a mess. But that doesn't mean that Ukraine is winning. Putin seems to be losing, but it doesn't mean Ukraine is winning. Ukraine is being hit, dismantled. Russia is not being hit and dismantled, the Ukraine is. Now, how is Putin really being hurt? He's being hurt by sanctions. He's being hurt economically. Europe, Western Europe, Germany, France, they're also being hurt. It's just that Putin is being hurt more.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just that Putin is being hurt more. But that's again being done by the West, not by the Ukrainians. You've had like 1.5 million people flee Russia, not wanting to be conscripted. Many of these people are the educated middle class, the professional class. This is going to have tremendous ramifications for the Russian economy. And if you look at the inflation in Russia, if you look at their inability to get alternative markets in India and China for oil and natural gas in an adequate enough quantity to replace what they've lost, plus even what they're selling, they're having to discount. They're having to discount the oil and natural gas. Russia is being hurt economically. There is no question. But they're being hurt economically by the West, not by the Ukraine. Ukraine is being battered. It is being beat up worse than Russia.
It's a rough thing, man.
That is why Zelensky is trying to get NATO involved in fighting.
Yeah.
They're already involved in fighting covertly.
Yeah.
He wants them involved in fighting overtly because the Ukraine can't do it. How can they possibly do it?
Jacob, let me ask you this.
Zelensky is no good guy himself. Ukraine is a corrupt government. A corrupt government. It's just Zelensky is simply a lesser of evils.
Let me ask you this: what's the goal? What's Zelensky's goal? Is it Crimea? Is it trying to get that back? Because then now that's going to be a war. If the U.S. is going to get involved in taking Crimea, forget it. We might as well go to war overtly now with Russia.
That's what he wants.
What do you think? Yeah, what do you think the goal is?
There's never any one goal. NATO needed a raison d'etre after the Cold War ended. Obviously, the war on terror was part of it. But in many respects, NATO went from being a defensive alliance to a more aggressive one.
Yeah.
A more aggressive one. We saw what happened in the former Yugoslavia. Europe, again, could not fight its own battles. They had to get the Americans and British to do it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Tony Blair, Wesley Clark, and Bill Clinton took the wrong side. They made the Serbs the absolute bad guys, when in fact the Serbs were no worse than the Croats and not as bad as the Kosovo Liberation Army, who were aligned with Al Qaeda. Tony Blair, Wesley Clark, Javier Solano, and Bill Clinton are guilty of war crimes. The NATO Charter says you cannot attack a country that has not attacked a NATO country. So NATO violated its own charter in the former Yugoslavia. NATO is not the NATO it was during the Cold War. It's looking for another cause.
Yeah.
Okay.
A reason for existing.
I think a lot of this could have been averted if they had negotiated at an earlier point with Putin. Trump would have done that. Donald Trump would have went in there with the art of the deal and prevented this. But you have Biden and the Democrats, so you have a war. Yeah. It was the Democrats who got us into Vietnam. It's the Democrats who get you into these things. That is what happens. When there's an imbroglio, it's the Democrats who get you into it usually. Of course, Bush is much the same, but that's their history, and that's what's happening. Further motives. These countries in Europe, France would have about enough resource and ammunition to fight for about a week or 10 days. Germany, the same. They've got the great Leopard tank, but the military isn't sizable enough to punch its way out of a paper bag. The United States Army has fallen into the trap it has always fallen into historically. At the beginning of the Civil War, there were very few soldiers. The army was small. World War I, the army was too small. World War II, the army was too small. Now the army is too small, and on top of that, it has a woke global warming agenda, according to it's not there for what it's supposed to be. It's stupid. What makes America a superpower is like what made the British a superpower. It is ruling the waves. It is the American Air Force and Navy. It is not the ground forces. The United States has always had to build an army when a war began. Second World War, they had to build an army. They knew the war was coming, and it began with the CCC camps during the Depression, preparing the youth to go into the military. The army was too small. The United States has always let its ground forces be too small. Well, remember, peace only comes through strength. Your army is too small, your enemies will take advantage. Well, America, again, before World War I, before World War II, before the Civil War, before every major conflict the United States has had, its army was too small. Its army was too small. It's the Air Force and Navy that makes America a superpower. That's just the way it is. Now, of course, this is in part ameliorated by technology.
Yeah.
Because you've got such more modern weapon systems as the Javelin and the HIMARS and other things in terrestrial warfare, that partially compensates for the size deficit. Okay. But there is a size deficit.
Yeah.
And what's really stupid is they have more generals and admirals who are largely politicians with stars on their shoulder than they had in World War II. They have more generals and admirals now than they had during the Second World War.
That's crazy.
Of course it is.
I watched an interview with Miley, and he sounded like a politician, not a general.
Oh, he is.
And then he said, basically, whatever Ukraine wants, Ukraine's going to get it. We're standing by them. We're going to supply them. And he almost talking like he knew what Congress was going to do. But he's for sure involved in this war to the nth degree to give Ukraine whatever they want and pass as many budgetary needs as they need.
We know that Ukraine is a corrupt country with a corrupt government. That Zelensky is not a good guy. The Israelis know he's not a good guy. That's the fact. But we all sympathize with the Ukrainian people. We all know Putin is a villain and a Stalinist. We all have the empathy for the Ukrainian people.
Yes.
And therefore, we are forced to get in bed with Zelensky and the Ukrainian government. That's the situation. But NATO did not give the Ukrainians what they needed to begin with. And they still haven't given the kind of armaments it would take to stop a real Soviet assault. Russian assault. If a real Soviet-style Russian assault was to come, where you send thousands of tanks, that's the Russian strategy. If that is what Putin's preparing to do, after he levels the infrastructure of the country, destroys the electricity grid, and etc., makes the people hungry, and then comes in with an old Soviet-style attack, it is going to take advanced weapon systems to repel him. The Soviets tried an attack like that on the Golan Heights in 1973. The Israelis were barely able to stop them. They eventually did, but that was the Israelis who had some of the best armaments in the world. from the Americans and some of their own homegrown. You need a lot more punch to stop what Putin is preparing than the Ukraine presently has.
Yeah.
They're not, the media is just not telling the truth. The Russian defeats do not mean that it's big Ukrainian gains. The Russians have strategically retrenched to a defensive position that Zelensky cannot successfully attack. In the meantime, the Ukraine itself, civilian population be damned. Its infrastructure, its electricity, its grid, its everything are all being leveled and destroyed. Moriel is operating out of Poland, a relief effort through a church with a Jewish pastor in the Ukraine. I get reports maybe twice a week. I got one when I was in Israel. I just got another one about what's happening in the Ukraine. We have people, Moriel has water filters because there's no water, there's no electricity to run the filtration systems for the water supply. Moriel bought our own water filtering system. Okay. We've got people coming miles and miles and miles to get water from Moriel or from a church that Moriel has provided the money and bought the filtration system. Okay. Now these people are coming and they're hearing the gospel.
Yeah,
they're all hearing the gospel. But some of them have come apparently a couple of 100 miles. You know what it's like to travel 200 miles to get clean water?
Crazy.
Putin is leveling this country's infrastructure, and the media is not telling the whole truth about it. We've got people traveling exorbitant distances, families coming to us or coming to our people who we finance for water. It's a church with a Jewish pastor, and they're distributing the water because the people can't get the water. They can't get water, but it isn't clean water. We give them clean water. And we use it as a way to present the gospel to them. And people are getting saved. But this is the reality of it. But we know that because of our own people in the Ukraine and Poland, because of our own people on the ground, we know what's really happening. The media is underreporting it. The plight of the people of the Ukraine is terrible.
That's the biggest part. For sure, that's the biggest part. Yeah, it's war is a horrible thing. And I can't imagine, our own country and other countries like NATO pushing this. Of course, Zelensky's pushing this. So Russia's, of course, attacking. And it's just a horrible thing. It's the people that really suffer the most, both the Russian people and, of course, the Ukrainians. Yes. And so much prayer for that, Jacob, and may the Lord bless that pastor that we're working through. Obviously, we can't say much about that.
His first name is Dima.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice Jewish boy who loves Jesus, the Messiah.
Amen. Praise the Lord. Just wanted to let everybody know we're past the hour mark, and we're going to be taking some questions at the end of catching up before we get into the backstage. So if you have the questions, please send them in. We'd love to take them. We'll put Jacob on the hot seat for a few minutes, and then we'll get into backstage. Jacob, we got just a couple of subjects before we finish and get into backstage. We'll go to Israel. Things are going on there. We were there. We saw a lot of it. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning. But let's talk a little bit about on the political front, because it's becoming a big issue. We had the elections here. They had their elections before that. And Netanyahu got back in. It's similar to what if Trump were to win in 2024. But a lot of things are going on. It's not an easy solution. He's got to form a coalition. He's got Iran breathing down its neck. They're testing the naval Iron Dome missile defense system because of the threat that's coming in from not only Gaza but up north. He's got to get a coalition going. Tell me a little bit more about that. Unpack that a little bit more in what you feel Netanyahu's up against, because that doesn't sound like a good thing.
Not for the first time. There are conspicuous parallelisms between the political plight of Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel and Donald Trump in America. They're bringing all these bogus criminal prosecutions and lawsuits against Trump. The same thing is happening with Benjamin Netanyahu. He's facing corruption charges while having been elected prime minister. Again, his political enemies are misusing the judicial system as a political weapon. Additionally, he has involved himself with people he would have been better off not involving himself with, much the same as Donald Trump would have been better off had he not involved himself with the illustrious Dr. Oz, among a few others. Okay. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has hit not a wall, but something of a bump in the road this week. He has to make an alliance with the religious parties, including the religious Zionists, including the Torah Observance Party and Shas and these right-wing religious parties and ultra-religious parties, okay, to keep the majority he needs. And that's narrow at 62 seats. The other right, center, and conservative factions like Yesh Atid, which means there is a future in Hebrew, and the National Unity Party, going back to the government of Lapid and so forth, and Naftali, they won't form a coalition with Donald Trump. So the right is divided, much the same as the Republican Party is divided between the rhinos and the conservatives.
Right.
You've got the same thing in Israel with the Likud and the other right parties. Yeah. Okay. You got a division within the right. Okay. And Bezalel Smotrich is one of the party leaders, is demanding to be the defense minister or at least the finance minister. He wants to be either Secretary of Defense or Secretary of Treasury, as it were. Okay, he's demanding this. There's a question as to his qualification, and also his ideology makes him somebody who the Americans would oppose being a defense minister. So Biden is getting pressure. Biden is putting pressure on Netanyahu. The Americans are pressuring Netanyahu. There have been rumors that he's again talking to his former coalition partners who don't like him to find an alternative to the obvious coalition that has given him the mandate to form a government from President Herzog. However, they deny it. They are denying it, and he's officially denying it. So once again, Israel is in its conundrum. It's in its usual state of permanent impasse. What's going to happen? The Americans are pressuring him. Don't let Smotrich be the defense minister. If you don't let me be the defense minister, I won't make a coalition with you. You won't be able to form a government. This is what's happening.
Oh man, yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah, how many days does he have to put this coalition together, Jacob?
He had 28 days. Now he has about 23 or 24. It can be extended for up to 6 weeks. It can be extended.
Now, worst case scenario, he doesn't get the coalition done. What's the next step? Is he have another election?
Another election, a caretaker government, just hopeless mess.
Oh man. Now he's run into a wall with the religious party, right? The religious party were going to support him.
Yeah, correct.
Now the issue of the LGBTQ stuff has come up. It seems that Netanyahu is very open to just continue on status quo with allowing LGBTQ and all that stuff, especially in Tel Aviv. The religious party wants to censor all that, but he's got to play. It's just, I don't think it's an impossible win.
Yes. there is a lot of homosexuality and child molestation going on in ultra-Orthodox yeshivas. That happens in Brooklyn, it happens in London, and it happens in Israel. But it's all played that much like the Roman Catholic Church. Yeah. The political influence of the religious institution plays it down and tries to keep it out of the media and keep the government's hands off it.
Yeah.
Officially, the Orthodox are against homosexuality. That is another problem. One of the biggest homosexual and lesbian festivals in the world, upwards of 250,000 people, is held annually in Tel Aviv.
Wow. Yeah, it's probably the biggest one now. I think it's surpassed.
It may be the biggest.
San Francisco, yes, I think it surpassed it. So yeah, there's some definite problems there. So a lot of prayer. It's a lot of wonderful. I met a lot of wonderful believers in Israel when I was there. A lot of prayers for them. They're up against not only the religious pressure, but also the political pressure.
Yes.
They're standing true, and I keep praying for them because the trouble's also from within, and we talked about that earlier.
Yes.
With the NAR movement. Jacob, any thoughts on Azerbaijan becoming the first Shiite Muslim country with embassy in Israel?
It does show very much that no matter what people say, religious fundamentalism and even Islamic fundamentalism are really second fiddles to the politics of money and power. When the political motive is there, the Shias will play ball with the Israelis, and that's always been true. People forget the Shah of Iran played ball with the Israelis before Ayatollah Khomeini came to power. Because of its political interest to do so. Was the worst thing that ever happened in Pakistan. Her father was no good, but she was good. Benazir Bhutto. She was, of course, murdered by Muslim fundamentalists. She played ball with the Israelis because she knew it was in the interest of Pakistan to do so. When it comes between religion and politics, politics will win among Muslims. When it comes between religion and politics, politics will win among Jews. And when it comes between religion and politics in American Christendom, politics will win over morality, over pro-life. They'll always compromise politically.
Very good. Very true, Jacob. Very, very true. Before we take the questions, and you still have time to take the questions in and send them. Jacob, I wanted to ask you about the Euphrates River right before we get into the questions. Less and less water is coming through the two main rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates. Ongoing conflict in that area of Iraq. Some people, some even rabbis, have even quoted Jeremiah 50, chapter 50, regarding no flowing water there. I'm just going to read it. A drought on her waters. This is about Babylon. They will dry up for a land of idols that will go mad with terror. So the desert creatures, hyenas will live there. Owl will dwell there. Ostriches shall dwell there, should never be settled again nor inhabited through the ages. Obviously, this is from the Jewish perspective. Rabbis are saying this is a prophecy of Jeremiah is going to come to pass. As believers, we know that in the book of Revelation, there is the Euphrates mention in chapter 16 regarding chapter 9, regarding the Euphrates river drying up and allowing an army coming through there.
Absolutely.
It was interesting that in Islam, some of the hadith suggest that Euphrates will dry up as well. I'm not sure if that's true. I've never read that part in the hadith, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more about it. I guess number one question is the Euphrates River drying up prophetically important? And what do you think about quoting from Jeremiah and the Muslim prophecy? Will that have anything to do with the way the Muslims see the end times?
I'll take the first half of your question first, then the second. Concerning the first half of your question, We have to remember Erdogan has ambitions of dam construction.
Yeah.
Where he will be able to control the headwaters of the Euphrates in Turkey to determine how much water will be in it. This is what Nasser tried to do. I'm sorry, with Nasser and the Egyptians tried to do with the Aswan Dam.
Okay.
We'll control, yes. Okay. We'll control the headwaters, okay, at Lake Nasser. They had to move all the Egyptian archaeological artifacts at Abu Simbel to make way for the place of the lake for the high dam. There's two dams. Okay. So what happened with Lake Nasser, with the Aswan Dam? Turkey has an ambition, a published ambition, to do the same with the Euphrates. It'll buy it tremendous political power. As we speak, there's tension between Sudan and Egypt over the Nile waters.
Yeah.
Water in the Middle East is something wars can easily be fought over.
Yeah.
Even the Litani River in southern Lebanon, a war can be fought over it.
Wow.
Water in the Middle East is a rare commodity. So far, only the Israelis eventually managed to solve most of their water problem. Not all of it, but most of it. They found a way to make it more economical to have desalination with reverse osmosis.
I've seen those plants. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very expensive, but it's still more economical than it once was. The Israelis, together with certain American companies that partnered with them, have found a way to make reverse osmosis on a massive scale more economical than it had been, because it is expensive. Okay, so Israel actually has a water surplus now, despite an increased population.
Amazing.
It is only the Israelis who are doing this. The Arab countries are in serious trouble. Okay, Jordan particularly. Now, we know that there are demonic powers, principalities associated with the Euphrates. We see this in the book of Revelation with the frogs and things like this. This is absolutely the case. Any drying up of the Euphrates, I have no doubt that it will relate to the prophecies of Revelation, the book of Revelation, and the book of Jeremiah. I have no doubt. That is happening now in concert with other world events. I have no doubt. As to your second question, Islam has its own eschatology, as it were. They have an antichrist. Only our Christ is their antichrist. And their antichrist is our Christ.
It's inverse. Yeah, inverse hermeneutic.
What they ascribe to the antichrist is what our Christ will do. What the antichrist is going to do in our theology, that is going to be the Mahdi. That's going to be their savior. Our Christ is their antichrist. Their antichrist is our Christ. Islam always reverses. Instead of the chosen son being Isaac, it becomes Ishmael. Instead of the chosen son being Jacob, it becomes Esau, in effect. Instead of Jesus dying on the cross, no, Judas died on the cross. Islam always reverses. And that's true in Islamic eschatology, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But remember, Islam is being set up for the Antichrist, the same as unbelieving Israel, and the same as the apostate church. And I have no doubt that the Antichrist will fulfill their expected prophecies to get the Muslims to follow him and believe in him. Yes.
it is interesting that you have these dynamics within Israel. Like, how can the unbelieving Jews be set up for the Antichrist? How can the Muslims set up for the Antichrist? How can unbeliever, or you could say the apostate church within Israel be set up for the Antichrist? But you know what? Being there, I could see it. I could see how it could happen. I could see how it could happen. So these water wars, and obviously, I encourage everyone who's watching and just Google or your favorite search engine, water wars, and you'll see what Jacob's talking about. It's a litany of different places that could go to war. A lot of them in the Middle East, some in Africa, but in the Middle East especially, because of obviously the dynamic there and the geography there and the climate. I've seen I was there near the Dead Sea, and you could see Jordan across, and they have a big water problem, huge water problem. Yep. If it wasn't for Israel, they wouldn't have any water, so they have to be nice to Israel. They have to be nice to Israel. All right, Jacob. Well, these are
not been for the water problem. It's not likely that Jordan would have made a peace treaty with Israel.
It's very true. That is very true. Jacob, let's put you on the hot seat before we get into backstage. This is some people's favorite part because they love to ask you questions, get an answer. We'll go rapid fire because we got to get into backstage. You ready, Jacob?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. All right. How long do you think, Jacob, we have until we face a total breakdown into lawlessness and tribulation?
I can't answer that question, but what I can say is when it happens, it can happen very quickly. It can happen overnight.
Wow. The pace.
It will happen, and when it comes, it'll come quickly.
Yeah. This is why they need to be ready, and they need to be seeking the Lord.
Don't buy batteries after the blackout.
Very true. You always, exactly right. And that's what I hate to say it. Most people react when it's too late.
That's correct.
Most people would try to get right.
They always built the barn door after the horse escapes.
That's right. Jacob, will the Dems and Rhinos welcome DeSantis to beat Trump and then turn on DeSantis as a nominee?
Oh, that's obvious, yes.
Okay. All right.
Whoever the nominee is, they'll go for him like a pack of wolves, yes.
All right. Jacob, do you guys feel in any way a Christian duty to vote anymore in America? Or was it ever? The system is so obviously corrupt, I don't see the point when it's rigged like this.
We are called to pray for those in authority. We are called to pray for our nations and be good citizens of them to the extent possible without violating God's laws. We are also called to be salt and light. Democracy came into being in its modern form because of the biblical influences in Britain and colonial America. I do believe that Christians should be good citizens. That is the principle of being good citizens. And being a good citizen requires voting. Therefore, in order to be a good citizen, I think Christians should vote. But if a Christian says they're not going to vote, I won't hold it against them. You can be in situations, as I've been in, where I couldn't vote for the Democrat and I couldn't vote for the Republican. I voted for some third party as a protest or a write-in, but I did vote. I wasn't aligning myself with any party. I was simply being a good citizen. And by writing in a vote, I was protesting the system.
Interesting. Jacob, do you feel it matters anymore? I understand.
Ultimately, it's the Lord, according to Daniel 2, who establishes kings and removes kings. Ultimately, it's him.
100%.
Does it matter? Yeah, I do think it matters, but not much.
Yes, absolutely. A God who puts kings and removes kings. Absolutely. God gives mercy. God gives justice.
Prayer is more important than voting.
Amen.
But we should vote.
Amen. I agree. Jacob, climate change activists smashed tablets on Mount Sinai Is this about the Green New Deal? I mean, the Green Deal, climate change that the
Look,
world
this green agenda is a religion.
It's so true.
It
So
is the
true.
worship of Geo,
Hmm.
Mother Earth.
Mother
It
Earth,
is
yeah.
Hinduistic religious philosophy coming west. It is the worship of the creation instead of the creator. The green agenda is a religion.
They have an ethos, they have a book, they have
Not only that, they have a faith. Don't forget, only the scriptures have a faith that's not a blind faith. Come, let us reason together, says the Lord. There's empirical evidence. Jesus always gave empirical evidence, like in John 5 and so forth. Okay. But apart from the Judeo-Christian scriptures, all religion requires a blind faith.
Hmm.
You need a blind faith to believe the Book of Mormon is true, or to believe the Bhagavad Gita is true, or to believe the Quran is true. You need a blind faith. Okay. Well, you need a blind faith to believe the green agenda, because the scientific evidence doesn't support so much of what they say. It's a religion. It's their religion.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's become,
They worship the creation instead of the creator.
yeah, that's right. Well, this was foretold in scriptures. That's
They
exactly right.
repent to the earth.
It's crazy to see that major religious figures, political figures, they're all getting involved in it. The Pope is like the biggest activist among all.
Sure,
this.
it's a form of animism. It's a form of nature worship.
Yeah.
Wicca.
Yeah.
Wicca is nature worship.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what you call it or how you express it. These things all have the same tenets.
Mhm.
And the green agenda, Geo worship in Hinduism or Wicca, they're all the same.
Yeah.
You're worshiping the creation instead of the creator.
Nature worship, absolutely. Jacob, these are all the questions that we have. So we appreciate those who have sent the questions, putting Jacob on the hot seat. Let's remove Jacob off the hot seat. You're good, Jacob. You made it again. If you're watching on Facebook Live, if you're watching on YouTube, we'll give you just a couple of minutes to jump over to Rumble, to jump over to Telegram, to jump over to RTN, to jump over to Rumble, RTN, I'm sorry, not Be Alert, Telegram. I forget anybody else that we're on. Vimeo, that's right, Vimeo. Jump over to that side. The links are there. They ought to be there. They should be there. Jump over to there, and we're going to start Backstage in just a couple of minutes. So we'll give you time to get there. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Jacob's very shy. He doesn't always tell you what he thinks on video. So he holds back for Backstage. If you really want to know, you got to get to Backstage, and you can see Jacob in his true form. All kidding aside, we have a lot of fun on Backstage, by the way. And we get to talk about these things without feeling the pressure of any censorship. Not that we're afraid of it. We just want God's word to go out. And the more they suppress the channel, the more they suppress, then it becomes a real difficult thing. So we like to go Backstage and talk about these things, but we make it open. We make it public. It's not that we're hiding anything. You can come and watch Backstage and exactly and hear exactly what Jacob has to say about all these other subjects that we leave for Backstage, because we just can't talk about it. If you talk about it in there, then it jeopardizes a lot of things that we're doing on the front end. So come to Backstage. Jay will let us know when that time comes. We're letting people come into Rumble and all the other platforms, and then we'll have a good time there. We got the G20 stuff that we need to talk about. We're going to show some videos of Xi and Trudeau. We're going to be talking about how the G20 is pushing some very nefarious stuff. The replacement theory, Chuck Schumer is big on that and what that means. Then we'll also talk about fentanyl and marijuana. So all that we're going to jumble it together. If that interests you, come over to Backstage.